Showtime on your end?
I am. It says the broadcast is live. We are ready to go.
Well, Dave, I'm so excited. I'm hoping I'm not so pixelated this week. We have increased our internet. Now, remember, we live in a small town where we have horses that pull and kind of get all the internet going here.
Yeah, I thought maybe you got the hamsters moving a little faster this morning. You got them a little more feed, warmed up the place for them, and they just got moving a little better.
Now, we moved from hamsters to horses. So we're actually really growing in our town of what, 2,000 people. And so we're really starting to see some big progress here.
Yeah, you look like the guy that I usually like to see. You're not that pixelated guy that I'm getting used to that we've had the last few weeks. So very excited. Yeah, this is going to be great.
And just to remind everyone that will be joining us live that are already here is that we do a question and answer. We ask Dave a bunch of retirement questions, and he goes off, and we try to see if we can get him to stumble a little bit, but he just does a great job. And so it's hard for us to do that. But then we also encourage you to send in your retirement questions and send us anything that you have, anything that you're thinking about, interested in. I mean, from Medicare to Social Security to long-term care. I mean, there's so many topics. Dave, first of all, how do you know all of this? I'm impressed by that.
Well, there's a lot of studying that's gone on behind the scenes. I do spend a lot of hours going through different webinars myself from various topics, reading a lot of books, watching a lot of videos. I am an addict when it comes to retirement, but I also realize that there are a lot of other things I don't know anything about. Last night I was in my Toastmaster meeting and they were asking a bunch of table topics questions. All these people knew all about them, their foreign policy and stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? Let me just talk about retirement for a few minutes.
Well, Dave, I know I just am astonished by how much knowledge you can keep in your head at this, because I usually will go through, read stuff, I'll remember it for a week, and after that I can't remember. But I'm really excited. It's like Corey from Florida is jumping on saying hello.
Yes, hello, Corey. Good to see you. I had a chance to talk to him yesterday. I had a great conversation. One of the advisors we work with. Very excited to have you here with us again today.
Yeah, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods, Corey, by the end of the week. So that'll be exciting, or at least next week I will. So thanks for being here. And again, for those joining us live, please go ahead and submit your retirement questions. And as we get to those, we're going to go ahead and throw those and kind of mix them in with the questions I already have pre-arranged so I can ask Dave. And again, we're going to kind of go through the scenario. So Dave, it's Wednesday. I'm excited. And the other thing I had to announce we haven't talked about is we're live on YouTube and Facebook. And just before I went live, I've got an email from LinkedIn saying we're approved and we're ready to go live with LinkedIn.
Yes, it's exciting. I know it's for that one.
Yeah, so that will be actually coming next week, I'm hoping, when Dave may be doing a secret special show next week, since I'll be actually in Florida. And Corey's asking whereabouts. I'm actually going to be in Daytona Beach just for a day. We're going to go visit a school down there called Embry-Riddle for my son. So enough about me, Dave. Let's get into these questions, shall we?
Okay, let's do it.
My first one comes from Virginia, and she asked, what is the impact on my Medicare premiums if I do a Roth conversion?
Roth conversions are really the hot topic right now. If you talk to any advisor out there that really understands the effective tax rates, that understands where we're at in history right now, what you understand is that right now is a great time to do Roth conversions. We've still got almost 30 days, I guess, 29 days left to be able to take care of those. The problem that some people have, though, and the concern they have is if your income gets above a certain limit. So for 2020, if it gets above $174,000, then your premiums for Medicare, that's for a married couple, then your premiums for Medicare are going to go up. And there are steps. It can go up from the $144.60 that it is now. The first step's like $202 and some change, and then it can go up to like $400 and something dollars once it gets so high. The problem people have is that the versions, they may get above those limits. And the impact comes 2 years later. So it's not going to be today that your Medicare premiums are going to go up. It's 2 years from now. So you do need to take it into consideration. But what we realize is that those increases are less than 1% of your asset value. And the chances that taxes only go up 1% in the future with all the financial mess we have going on right now is there's no chance. I mean, the chances that it's going to go substantially higher than that. So although it's a concern, for most of you, what you need to do is look at in the overall picture with an advisor, and two, realize that for many of you, you're still not even going to get above that $174,000 threshold. So you're not even going to have to worry about it.
So Dave, you did talk about income, but what about age? Because I know if you put both of those, that Roth conversion could trigger those, like you mentioned, higher Medicare premiums.
Yeah, so Medicare is not going to kick in for you until age 65. So it's going to have to be after that. And again, remember, it's a 2-year window. So whatever happens today, it's going to affect you 2 years in the future. And the reason the delay is because the government's got to process that income. They've got to process your tax return. They've got to see how much money you made. They're going to be able to do that. And then they're going to hit you with those higher premiums. Now, there are some options to get those premiums reduced, but Roth conversion is not one of those.
Now, Dave, I did hear this one time before. I wrote it down, but I wanted to get your take on this. They said this: 1 year of higher healthcare costs may be worth it to lower your RMDs, which is your
required minimum distributions. Yeah.
I'm trying to spit it out here. Your RMDs and taxes in the future.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're saying here is when you look at the impact, because it's not a lifetime impact. That's the other thing you've got to understand, that if your income pops up for 1 year, 2 years later, premiums are going to be higher. Next year, it goes back down. Premiums are going to go right back down. So you're exactly right, because we've got this uncertainty. And even this morning, I was on another webinar with Ed Slott. If any of you know Ed, he's an IRA guru. He's been in the CPA world forever. But he was talking this morning about the conversions and this impact. And even if taxes didn't go up, what we've done is taken all that uncertainty out of your retirement. Now, there's no belief in my mind that they won't, but even if they didn't, even if things were able to stay the same, what we've done is taken away all that uncertainty. And now you've got a safe and secure retirement, you know, for the rest of your life. If you live to be 90, 100, I've got a grandmother right now. She's 96 years old. 96, went and visited her the other day, just had a great visit with her. Her mind's still very sharp, but she can know that she can get whatever money is in her account. It's going to go to her, not the government.
And Dave, let's see if I can spit it out this time. The required minimum distributions, don't they kick in at age 70 and a half?
72 now. So it was 70 and a half. Secure Act at the end of 2019 increased them to 72. There's some discussion out there to even increase them to 75. There's a group of people that would like to see that. The biggest problem is what they're trying to do is to help people with the tax side. The biggest problem is that the lower segment of the population, 40% of them have to take those distributions because they have to live off that money. It's not just excess money that they've got invested. 40% need that money. So I'm not sure that it really makes much of an impact except for on wealthier people, which is really part of what the government's trying to avoid right now, is giving the wealthy more money and taking more money away from those who don't have it.
That's crazy. Well, Dave, again, I'm just going to remind everyone that's watching live, go ahead and tell us where you're watching from. And also if you have a retirement question, again, we have a whole list of questions I have here, but I'd love to be able to squeeze some of your questions in so Dave can answer those as well. And Dave, thanks for answering a lot of those. I have a couple questions that I want to kind of continue on with here. This one's from Jerry. He says, when you talk about the 3% rule for distributions, is Social Security included in that calculation?
No, it is not. So you've got to understand when we talk about the 3% withdrawal rate, and this is a Monte Carlo simulation process that's been done. It started by William Binion back in the mid 1990s. He was the one who came out with the process for financial planning. Now, Stanislaw Ulam, Polish mathematician, was the first person to bring it about back in the 1940s. But using these mathematical calculations, they've determined 3% distribution is the right amount in today's environment for you to take out of your retirement plan, but it does not include your Social Security because that's fixed set of income. You're going to get that every month, year after year, throughout your retirement. It's going to get inflation adjusted. It's not going to be impacted. But if you've got a large sum, maybe you've got a couple $100,000 in a IRA or a 401k, 3% is really the amount that you should be taking out of there to ensure that money's going to last you throughout the rest of your retirement, if it's subject to all the various risks that your retirement may face if it's in a traditional retirement plan.
And Dave, let's talk a little bit about those risks, because I know that's something as a risk management consultant where you are. Help us understand a little bit about this.
Yeah, what I really understood is that a lot of advisors are good at getting you to retirement. That's what they focus on. They invest your money. They help you get through those working years. They help you budget a little bit. Well, then you get there and you think, great, I can keep doing everything I was doing during my working years. Well, physically, we can't do it. Most of us get to a point that it's like, okay, playing basketball 5 days a week is not such an option for me anymore. But it's the same with your retirement. You're faced with a whole bundle of risk. You're faced with longevity risk and tax rate risk, two of the biggest ones. We're living longer. Tax rates are going up. We're faced with these risks, and we've got to figure out how to eliminate those, or what you're going to find is you're going to get to a point that you're going to have some major issues with that retirement, similar to lifestyle. You go out and try to do something you did in your 20s. If you've not done it for 40 years, you're going to have some issues. We may be visiting you in the hospital and not seeing you there at your home.
That would definitely be hard to go back and try to do something back when I was in my 20s already, it seems like.
Yeah, my kids were talking about backflips the other day. I couldn't do one in my 20s, and I sure don't want to try one of those now I'm 50.
Exactly. Well, Dave, I've got a question that came in from one of our favorites. Let's see if I can get it pulled up here. We've got Gary back. Gary, hello, welcome.
Hey, Gary, welcome. Good to see you again. Nice to have you here with us. Always great to see you every Wednesday here joining us live.
And Gary, I have your t-shirt. I'm waiting for you to respond to my email. It's going to be similar to this one, but obviously mine's in orange. So yours will be in gray or green. But let's get to Gary's question. So Gary says, can I delay my required beginning date if I continue to work for myself or for someone else?
So Gary, I need a little bit more information here. I need to understand what that required beginning date is that you're talking about. I assume it's talking about one of the various programs out there. If you can just shoot us some additional information, happy to make sure we get this question answered the best that we can.
We also got Jeff jumping on to say a good afternoon to you as well.
Hey, Jeff, good to see you again. Glad to see that Corey let you get back on the computer after all those stock trades you were doing yesterday.
Sounds like they're working hard. All right, Dave. Well, while we're waiting for Gary and while others are sending some messages there, let's go ahead and get to my next question from Mark. And Mark asked, what is the deadline for Roth conversion?
It is the 31st. So as long as you have money out of that account on the 31st of this month, you're going to be able to get that conversion done for 2020. Now, I will tell you, you are not going to want to wait until the 30th after you get done with your Christmas, Christmas and all the after returns that you're doing while you're sitting there thinking about the new year going, oh, I need to rush over to my advisor and make sure I get this done. It's not going to happen. You've got to give them some time to be able to do the paperwork, to make sure the cells and everything happen the way they should, and to make sure it's the right thing for you. And I don't recommend anyone go into a conversion just because we talk about it here on this live event. Please do not go out and do that. You want to get some advice. You want to make sure that it's going to be the right decision for you, that it puts you in the right tax situation. So going forward, you can use it as a way to help eliminate the various risks you're facing.
Dave, did you ever see that when you were doing the tax piece too? Somebody came to you on the 14th or maybe even the 15th and said, hey, Dave, could you help me out here?
It happens all the time. And we've got stories that are horror stories that happen because of it. One of them was dealing with a Social Security situation. Had a client, he was in the 40% bracket, and that was at the time, it was the top bracket. Now our top bracket's 37, so not much higher. But he was just frustrated. He was angry that he was paying so much in tax. So he goes, good, look, I've got this great idea. I've got a mother that's retired that's only getting Social Security. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to allocate some of my money to her. She can then gift it back to me. I'll be able to pay a lower tax. I'll save myself substantial amounts of money. Well, he did all that on his own. He never called. He never talked to me. Comes at the end of the year and he says, Dave, I did this great thing. I saved myself so much money. Well, when I went through and did the calculation CR because of provisional income that causes Social Security to be taxed, he ended up paying 55%. He didn't save himself money. He cost himself 15%. And then he was really angry once he realized that what he had done had created actually more tax. So you've just got to be careful with it. You want good advice to make sure you don't make these blunders that you think are really trying to help you out.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. Well, Dave, Gary responded back. I was just reading his question. I'm hoping this is going to answer it. But he said, I wish to delay my required beginning date to the date I stop working, which, for example, is 85.
Okay, Gary, I still apologize here because I'm not certain what that required beginning date is. Is that referring to Social Security? Is it referring to Medicare? Is it referring to your retirement plan overall? I really apologize. I just need to know what that required beginning date is when you're talking about the age that you're looking at for your retirement there.
Good. We're getting a little closer, Gary. Each time we're getting a little bit better there. Well, let's get back over and let's hide Mark and let's get Ruth on here. And Ruth says, can you truly trust that the government won't tax Roth accounts in the future? I really thought this was a great question because this is probably on a lot of people's minds, just like Social Security. I'm sure that they're freaking out about this as well.
Yeah, we've got a situation right here where I don't know any of us feel like we can trust the government right now with everything that's going on, the uncertainties, the things that continue to change that we think were set from the maybe even month before, the day before. But a couple of things that I would say here. Number one is Roth accounts are such a small portion of retirement. They're less than 5%. So if you took all the retirement assets that are out there, which right now somewhere between 20 and 30 trillion dollars, everyone gives kind of a different number. We're talking about 5%. So maybe if we look at $1 to $1.5 trillion of all of that. So it's a very small bucket. Well, if we have a tax issue, I mean, if I'm the government and I have a major tax issue that I've got to solve, I'm not going to go for the smallest segment of the population. The guys who set this up right, who already paid their taxes, I'm going to have to go back on my word, change the laws. For me, what am I going to do? I'm going to take those tax deferred accounts. That's where 20 to 30 trillion dollars of assets are sitting out there. All I've got to do is increase the amount by 1, 2, 5, 10%. All of a sudden, I've solved a lot of financial issues. So, Ruth, if I look at it going forward from my side of it, and I look at the economics of the country, I really don't see them picking that as their battle. I see it being the other side, because the other side, there's no going back on anyone's word. If I go after your deferred accounts, I told you that when you put them in place. Hey, I'll give you a tax deferral today in 2020 with the uncertainty that you're going to pay me some higher or lower amount in the future. Well, guess what, Ruth? I'm going to make it much higher on your tax deferred account.
And I was looking at this too, and actually for the Roth, it's actually legal. It's legal. It's possible for Congress to do this, so they can go through and actually increase this. But politically, it's very unlikely. And can you imagine how unpopular this would be with like the senior voters? I mean, this would totally, it would just be a nightmare for anything. And I think it's a great question because I think it's very, very valid. It's like Social Security. Yeah. Are things going to change with Social Security? I mean, are they going to go broke? I mean, these are all the things that people hold on to because they've heard it one time or they've seen it on a blog post and they said, this is gospel. But they don't realize, like what you suggested earlier, is the way that the impact will actually be very, very minimal for them.
And what they've got to understand too, and Ruth, on your side, is what you need to understand. You've done your part. If you paid into a Roth, you've paid your taxes. Many people think, can I be a good citizen and not pay my taxes? Can I really do this? Well, you legally paid your fair share at the time that it was required for you to pay those taxes. So again, I just don't see Congress going after this small bucket to get those taxes when they've got such a large bucket sitting there that they know they can do with. I mean, they're going to get political backlash, obviously, and absolutely. But when you compare it to saying, I'm going to change laws that you did years ago, now could I see a day where they may decide to take away the Roth option? Yeah, I could see that more so, much like Social Security. We see many times where Social Security changes, but it doesn't change for those in the program. Generally, what it does is changes for those that are going to come into the program in the future.
And Dave, while we're waiting, I see Gary's question pop up, but before that, I see one from Pam that came in through Facebook Live. And she said, is there any way to avoid paying taxes on Social Security payments if your total payments received exceed the maximum?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's make sure that everyone understands. And also, Pam, let's make sure that I'm going to answer your question correctly. If you've got follow-up questions, please make sure that you send those in. I want to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. But the issue is what's called provisional income. So if you take your taxable income, which could be in retirement, it may be a distribution from an IRA, it may be interest income, dividend income. If you take that, your tax exempt interest income, if you happen to have municipal bonds or something that's providing you tax exempt income, and then 1/2 of your Social Security, if you add all of that up and it exceeds $25,000 for a single individual or $32,000 for a married couple, you're going to pay some form of tax on those Social Security earnings. So that's the guidelines. Well, here it sounds like maybe there's even a chance that if you add up half of the Social Security, that you're over that limit, that you're at a point that even, once you add that together, maybe your Social Security benefits are so high that it's exceeding what your standard deduction would be or other things that are out there to allow for taxability. If that's the case, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do to get out of that tax. Now, if you've got other sources of income, if you've got a IRA or if you've got interest, and that's creating the problem, my recommendation is that you convert those into tax-free now. Why are these historically low tax rates? So you don't have to worry about it. So even if you do have tax, it's going to be a very, very small amount. You're going to be in those lower brackets. Now, the big problem is, CR, is when we look at it, we've got a 0% bracket, and then we end up with a 10 to 12% brackets the next level. So it's not like we can go from 0 to 1 or 2. It's like, hey, if you're going to pay tax, you're going to go into a 10 or 12%. If that ends up doubling, now you're talking 20, 24%.
Yeah, and she said that's correct. So I think you got to the point exactly what she was looking for. And Pam, if you have any other questions or a follow-up on that, please let me know. But it looks like hopefully we got the question narrowed down there. And Dave, we're getting back to Gary. So let's get Gary's original question back in here. Can I delay my required beginning date if I continue to work for myself or for someone else? So the follow-up to this one is, I understand that required minimum distributions, I cannot read, must start at age 72. Oh, sorry, Dave, let me get back to the other one he submitted first. Required beginning date is the first date that I am required to get a required minimum distribution from a tax deferred requirement account. And let's get to the next one. Sorry, Dave, it's got jumbled here. It's my fault. I understand that required minimum distributions must start at age 72. I wish to delay that date, that I must take my RMDs by continuing to work, say until 85 or later.
Gary, we're going to go through this whole process. Now, I completely understand your question, and thank you for being willing to go through the process and making sure we understand it. I didn't want to answer it incorrectly and just be giving you a bunch of information you don't need. But that being said, it is my understanding that you do have to take it regardless. The work's not going to allow you to delay those periods any further, that once you hit 72, whatever's in those accounts, you're going to have to start distributing money out of there. Now, there is a chance I'm wrong on this. This is an area where they just changed these laws back in the end of 2019 through the Secure Act, and there may be something in that provision that I'm not aware of that would allow you to continue to work. But it's my general understanding that once you hit that age, no matter if you're working, not working, that money's got to start coming out. And it's part of the government's plan because they want to get that money into the tax system. Whether you spend it or not, or whether you do anything with the money or not, they want to ensure that the taxes are getting paid so they can get that into the system and continue to use that to run the government.
Gary, I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I stumbled through there. My screen is so small, but I've got the text so small in some of these that I have to just kind of slaughter my way through it. So I hope that worked. And Dave, thank you so much for answering the questions from Pam and Gary. I think it's been very helpful, and I really appreciate that. Okay, Gary, if you have a follow-up, let me know. And then Dave, we're going to go ahead. I've got a couple more questions I want to throw at you before we finish up here.
Okay.
All right, so let's go to Tina. Tina said, would it make sense to use a Roth to eliminate sequence of return risk rather than a LIRP, which is a life insurance retirement plan, if you have limited savings for retirement?
Tina, it is not going to make sense. You need to understand how both of these work and really the purpose of the LIRP. Now, the great thing about both these is they're eliminating tax rate risk. So this is one of the great things is you can use a Roth, you can use a life insurance retirement plan. It's going to help you take tax rate risk off the table. Problem with the Roth is you've got to invest that somewhere. Generally, it's going to be in the stock market, mutual funds, maybe you self-direct that Roth and you've got it in real estate, whatever it may be, anything you're investing in is going to go up or down, or you're going to be putting it in the bank account and it's not going to go anywhere. And you're going to be subject to inflation risk, which I wouldn't recommend for anyone. So you've got these ups and downs. There's no floors. There's no ceilings. With a life insurance retirement plan, it's got a window. So we've got a floor anywhere from 0 to, let's say, 4%. And then we've got a ceiling that's somewhere between 12 and 15%. Maybe it goes up as high as 20 plus, depending on what insurance company you have. Well, that's going to keep you from having that volatility. If the market goes down 30%, you're stuck at the floor, maybe at 0%. If the market goes up to 50%, well, you're going to be stuck at maybe that 15% cap. But volatility is what's going to kill your life insurance retirement plan. It's oftentimes what's going to kill your retirement when you have to take money out. I mean, think about it, Tina. If you had a situation with a Roth, let's say first of this year, and I saw people do it, market dropped 30 to 40% for some people, they took money out. Well, if you take money out, now you've just locked in that loss, and now you've created a situation. If you have to do that for very long, you're going to cut the asset value in half very quickly and take 10 to 15 years off your retirement. So it isn't something that you want to use either or. It's really something you've got to look at together. And maybe a worst case is you would look at the life insurance as your option versus the Roth, just to help you eliminate that sequence of return risk.
Dave, do you see people riding the market all the way to retirement and then trying to hurry and make a quick decision to see if that might help them a little bit because maybe they're behind, and see if that might affect them a little?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems we have out there, and it's going to get worse. I hate to say that, but when we look at the gap that exists out there in retirement plans, those that have and those that have not, that gap just keeps getting bigger, and it's going to continue to get bigger. Well, then what happens? The problem that happens is it's just like anything else in our lives. Once we get to a point and we're not prepared for it, two things kick in: fear or greed, one of the two. Well, both of those are bad things when it comes to making decisions. If fear kicks in, then all of a sudden we may be to where we can't make a decision. And I've seen people do that, where they get to, even during their working years or retirement, it's like, hey, you need to finally invest. You need to do something. They're like, no. And then inflation eats it away, inflation risk. Or you have that other situation where greed kicks in, and all of a sudden the wrong person comes along promoting some crazy investment that's going to return tons of money, and that greed bug kicks in. They like, look, I've got 50,000. It's not enough for my retirement. Man, if I could turn that into 500, boy, my retirement would look amazing. And it's just a breeding ground for dishonesty. It's a breeding ground for destruction of retirement plans. So yeah, something people really have to be careful of, CR.
And Dave, I wanted to throw in Gary. I've been reading over in the comments here, and Gary submitted another question I wanted to throw at you, because I thought this was something we talked about earlier, making sure we're not doing things to the end, but I thought this was a great question. He said, must I complete the Backdoor Roth IRA strategy by December 31st, 2020, or do I have until April 15th, 2021 for a 2020 tax year conversion?
Yeah, you're going to need to do that by the end of the year. So if you're looking at these back doors, you're going to want to get it done by the end of the year to make it apply for 2020, because again, you've got to convert over. Remember, when we're doing backdoor Roth conversions, yes, you have until April to make a contribution and it can apply back, but then you have to do the conversion over, and that conversion only applies to calendar year. So if you are looking at doing this, or you've got clients or other individuals that are looking at doing this, something you want to get done, and generally you want some lag in there too as well, because what you don't want the government to do is to say, hey, wait, you were really never intending to put money in that regular IRA account. All you want to do is get into a Roth, and you're just shamming the system. You're using something that's set up there. So what you usually want is a little time to get that money in, and then a little period where you can then do the conversion over.
And Gary, again, thank you for the question. We love having you on. Appreciate all that you're submitting here. Dave, before we go, I just wanted to kind of bring up a few things. Obviously, we talk about a lot of different things here, but one of the things I do want to talk about is we're going to do something very similar to what you and I are doing here. We're going to be doing it on December 15th on cpaacademy.org. And I wanted to have you talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for this show. So I really shouldn't say show, it's really a webinar, but I always do, lecture style webinars. Hopefully they're more exciting than your standard lecture, but we're going through a slide deck. We're talking about various topics. We have really an end goal of getting through a bunch of information to help educate you. This webinar is going to be completely different. We will prime it with some questions just to get going. But what we want is the audience that's there to be able to ask their questions, get them answered in a live environment on these government programs, in hopes of helping all those that are there better understand the programs. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a webinar and someone asked a question that really helped me better understand what I was learning. Maybe it was a question I hadn't thought of. Maybe it was something I thought I understood, but as the presenter explained it further, I realized that I didn't have the knowledge I thought I did. So yeah, very excited for that, to see the response, and hopefully to be able to get a bundle of questions answered for people.
And it's kind of fun on our end because we get to see how many people sign up. We get to see a big group already sign up to be part of this. And so we'll be very similar style where I'll be asking you questions like this, but they'll mainly be coming in, and those who want the CPE credit will be able to get that as well. And so Gary, I expect to see you there in that, because you're quite a follower, which we really appreciate. And Gary also says, thanks, Dave and CR. He's really excited to be there for all of that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this time of year, especially. It's not uncommon for us to have 1,000+ people sign up for our webinars, and I expect that one will exceed that as we get to that point. So it will be very interesting when you've got that big of a group. Again, we're asking random questions that many of them we don't know what they are, but really believe that when we're done, we can get the answers that people need and help them better understand programs that are so critical. That's one of the things. People don't realize how critical these government programs are to the retirement that is you're looking for, and the retirement that can help you have a much better retirement.
Exactly. Dave, also just want to do a quick shout out for the Prosperity Gap podcast. This is something every Friday this happens. It's really exciting to see. And I'm really, really excited for this week. I've actually been working on the show already for you, Dave, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. But give them just a quick piece on this podcast as well.
Yeah. So as we look at the podcast, for me, the great thing is it gives me the opportunity to just talk in more detail about the topics I cover here, the topics we cover in our webinars. It gives me that opportunity to take somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, usually every week. That's all I take. And then we take time to answer questions CR and I do together. But I do take that time to talk about various topics that are out there that would be of importance to you, that are things that you need to look at. And this week we're talking about year-end redistribution, and the show's going to go a different direction than you're probably thinking. When we think about redistribution, we often think about redistributing assets. Well, that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to tell you the details. I want you to listen to the show, but we're going to talk about some different thoughts and some different ideas to help you get where you should be by the end of 2020.
And Gary says, I'm a disciple of Dave Hall. So I like to see that, Gary. That's awesome.
Hey, Gary, always love to have you. It's always great to see you at the various webinars, to see you here, and to be able to have you be part of our lives.
And Dave, as we end the show, I mean, obviously you have 13 webinars that you do on CPA Academy. But I want to let everyone know, if they want to find out more about you, obviously to go to theprosperityguy.com. But the one thing that we've unlocked kind of for December right now, and we've been working with, is a chance for people to get to actually meet with you and talk with you for 30 minutes. Because prior to this, we've only had to meet with the advisors, and it hasn't really been a chance to talk to you personally. So tell me through the month of December why we're doing this and what this is achieving, and tell me about this meeting with you.
Yeah, we've got absolutely amazing advisors out there. I love all of the individuals that we work with. They've been a big part of my life. They've been a big part of the lives of those who have been able to work with them. But I want to be able to get on the ground more, be able to get in your lives and be a part of your lives more. One of the challenges that I deal with is I'm educating maybe 10 times a week. It's not uncommon for me to do 5 or 10 webinars a week. That's a lot when you look at the content, the prep time, getting everything set up. So what I want to do is get back to where I can get on the ground, make sure that I'm helping you get to the retirement you're looking for. My career has been built upon individuals. It's that look you in the eye, shake your hand, be able to spend that time together. I'm missing that in my life. So I'm trying to bring it back to where I can get involved with your retirement, help you make better decisions. And yeah, we'll get the advisors involved with us. We'll get other people that we need to get you to that safe and secure retirement. But I want to be a key part of that so we can accomplish those things that I've set out to do, which is to make sure people get where they want to be.
Exactly. And Dave, next week, the show will be you. I'll be actually in Embry-Riddle College for my son during this broadcast next week. So I'm excited to hear how it goes. And I really can't wait to see what kind of special things you bring out. Don't do any big giveaways or anything when I'm gone, because that would break my heart.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking about is doing an Airbnb giveaway of your house for a week while you were out. So I figured that would work out very well. People would go to Enterprise, Utah, hang out at your home, get to go to Marv's, hang out at Carter's, various little locations there. But it should be a great show. I've thought about what we will do. I've not come up with the exact conclusion of what it's going to look like, but I can promise you we'll have a great time. And it won't just be me. That's one thing you can be guaranteed of. Someone else will be here, even if it's my little dog that's sitting behind me.
Perfect. Well, and if you do Airbnb my house, remember they do have to take care of my sheep and goats, right? That's a requirement of that.
You know what? That's a perfect thing. It's the farm experience, CR. I mean, can you imagine for people living in the city that don't get a chance to experience this? This is like the perfect giveaway. The Southern Utah winter farm experience. You'll get a chance to probably shovel some snow. You get to go out and get the eggs that are all frozen out there in the chicken coop. You'll get to be able to feed the sheep. I mean, this just gets better, CR. I think you've talked me into it.
Yeah, break some ice for the water. Go out there and freeze while you're trying to feed them all, morning and night, remember.
Yes. The last thing that I would recommend, CR, is maybe you get a cow. I mean, that milking process could just be the key, the icing on the cake. I mean, let's get this done. 2021, the Enterprise Farm Airbnb. That's the perfect option.
Perfect. Well, and Dave, maybe on your show, you can talk about your farming experience and growing up and how you raised all your own food. So maybe that'll be next week's show as well.
Yeah, I may be your first guest, CR. I'll take those kids of mine there so they can experience what real hard work really looks like.
Well, let me know how it works out. I'll start getting it listed. And for everyone else, thank you so much for being here on our Wednesday for our Facebook and YouTube Live. And remember, next week we're shooting for LinkedIn. We're finally approved for that. So it took a long time to get there. And we're just very excited for that to come out. And we'll hope to see you then. And again, thank you for being part of this. And we hope to see you on our next event. And thanks for coming.
See you guys next week.